All right. Hello. Welcome to week 11. Enhancing the interface. That's what we want to do here. I also want to show you how to implement some assets into our little 2D platformer template. One thing to note is that it does take a little bit of time and a little bit of patience. Sometimes you'll run into bugs. If you do, we are here to assist you. So reach out to us if help is needed. First things first, I just want to make a little itty bitty sprite for my buttons because I do not have one, and it's about time that I do go through with that. I don't have one on this computer. I have a bajillion of them that I've made in the past, but essentially this should be enough, and actually this is more than enough, this 256 by 256, right? So I did create new, got this here up and running. RGB is fine. sRGB is the sort of profile we're looking for in regards to kind of keeping the same pace with Unity and or 709 gamma, but that's fine. And we do not want a white black background. We want a transparent background. So let's make sure that that is completed properly. 16-bit should be fine in regards to color. If you want a little bit more, move up to 32. That's acceptable. Press create. Now I need a button for my main selection. Maybe not main selection because I'm already on, or our interface is being made for the main menu. Thus, you don't actually have to make a button called main because you're already on it, right? We do need a couple of other things though. And I might not do all of them. I'll just kind of show you how to replace the sprites, perhaps for settings, perhaps for quit, perhaps for play or start, right? Or controls, etc. I think controls, play, and quit is pretty much what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for too much more there. I'm also going to show you how to replace your background with this template as well. So let's dig in. One thing we'll do is just make a shape. I'm going to go ahead and make a rectangle, and I'm actually going to take a peek at what the dimensions are for this, what the dimensions need to be for the button. That's probably a better way to put it. So let's go ahead and jump into Unity and figure that out. So here we are. We have our little template here. Note that I have a tile palette up. This is something that you'll be utilizing moving forward when you start implementing assets for the level. I'm going to actually show you right now just so you can kind of get ahead of the game. I'll make another more directed and targeted lecture video as we move forward in regards to putting all these little assets together that you've created, right? But tile mapping works a little bit different than just swapping out sprites. That's part of the reason why one of the reasons why I don't use it is because it's just something that doesn't really cater to what I do. However, it is a very valuable and very good way to create games in a sort of fast-paced pipeline, if you will. So, with that said, back to the interface. And then we'll jump back to this tile palette and how to gain access to it, because you probably don't have access to it right off the bat. If you do, that's great, but here we are with the interface, and we'll come back to that. First and foremost, notice that the interface is gigantic, and the level is very tiny now, right? This is basically a separate camera rendering this. So if I press F, if I'm, maybe I'm looking at the enemy for example, and I press F for focus, it'll focus in on the enemies, right? So F focuses in. Now I'm back to my level, and I can, you know, proceed with editing there if I have to. If I want the UI canvas, press F, just zooms me right back out, gives me a nice view of the UI. This is what we will be editing for a sort of pause menu, right? But the same principles apply. So eventually we're going to make a separate scene, and well, that scene's just going to be a UI canvas essentially that you can click through, start the game, etc. All that good stuff. It'll actually start a sort of video first, and then jump into the game. With that said, you can always sort of start out by looking at what you need, right? So in this case, I have a sort of weird door here, and if I did go to none in the sprite section, you can access all your sprites right here. You may have to select that content, and then you may have to go to image in the add component section. Just type in image, and you would select that, and then it'll populate. This is making up the background of the UI, right? So that is that. In regards to the header, it has its own little thing going on. Text Mesh Pro input. You can type in whatever you wish on the side of this within the inspector here. So salami, right? Whatever you wish. Put in what you wish there. For buttons, this is the overall sort of parent folder that carries along the children of buttons. So if I do select the buttons individually, I will indeed get different things. In this case, I am selected on this main button. And let's say I wanted to swap something out of that. Certainly can. Now, the one thing I want to focus on, though, is what you will be making. You'll be making a sort of main menu, right? Main menu should populate before, and it's kind of a title screen, right? So you want it to populate before basically the game starts, or the sort of cutscene starts. Like I said, though, same principles apply. So we're going to move forward with swapping out each of these sort of white fill-ins for the background, for the buttons, for the header portion as well, and we'll go from there. So let's do that. I'm going to go ahead, grab the main, actually the background. So we'll go to content. Within content, we have a source image within the image component. Remember, all of these are called components. In the image component, I have something called sprite, source image. We want to put a sprite in there. What sprite do I want to use? I'd like to use a sprite that I have ready for us. And this is just coming from one of my creations from not too long ago. And let me see if I can find that. Just go to my desktop. Remember, if you don't want to right click in your project folder and to then import new asset, you can actually just, you know, click on the folder that you have, drag it in view, and then drag your items into place. Right now, I'm probably going to want to go into the appropriate folder for this, so I'll just minimize that. If I go to environment, I see sprites in here. That should function just fine. I could just use that. I don't have a folder specifically dedicated to the menu. At least it doesn't appear that way from what I'm seeing here. So, okay, there's the UI canvas. There's my scenes. Also, big point here. Make sure that you save as a different scene name. I don't want you utilizing the sample scene as your sort of start scene. Use scene 1. It looks like I'll just go with these sprites. It is similar when it comes to environment. It is an environment, it just happens to be an interface as well, right? So we can always make a new folder, but I think this will be fine for now. So we'll just grab those 2 assets, drag them in to the sprites folder. I'm gonna rename this because it's not. There you go. This is just from a comic I did. So here we are. One thing to note, nothing has really been implemented appropriately yet. For what we need in the background, I think it's fine that it's bilinear. It does need to be a sprite, obviously. Single is fine as well. I don't mind that. Full rect might be nice, but it could also cause some stretching. I'm just going to be careful with that. And we'll go ahead and I don't mind repeating that, actually. That could be interesting. Let's see what happens. So I have a repeat here. I'm going to keep it at bilinear. So normally with sort of low res games, you want to try and keep it at point no filter. Point no filter is going to help with just making things clearer. Of course, if you are using sort of vectors, maybe you put things into Illustrator and vectorize them just to create paths versus pixel type shapes, right? You don't really need to use point. You can actually just keep it as is. It's fine. We're good. However, point no filter is a great way to clean up your pixelated PNGs. I'm not going to use it for this because it's going to be a full-blown image, right? So I will just keep it at bilinear. I'm actually going to do RGBA 32-bit. Allows me to keep the alpha. Gives me nice high bit colors as well. I won't be needing too much more than 1024, but I'll keep it at 2048, that's fine. Press apply. Note that we have a little preview here as well, kind of nice. And we'll just drag it into place. So we'll go to the content page, drag our little tree cat lady sprite. Note that it is stretching, right? One thing you can do to help out with that is to just select that so that's right in the center, right? You don't want it to stretch too much. How am I doing this? So I'm holding down Alt on the keyboard, and then I selected this little box up here, and then I just selected the center. It just centers the image, makes things nice and happy-pappy for me. I don't enjoy how it's stretching. So one thing to note is when importing things, you want to make sure that basically you're mimicking the same size as the interface itself. So right now we have 2160 and 1158, right? Just be aware of that. It doesn't have to be too difficult. If you wanted to, you could repeat images. You could perhaps take this image, resize it in some way, and then actually bring that image in to the sort of center of your interface creation. If we set the native size, it will do that for us, which is very convenient. It keeps things a lot easier, just for the sprite itself, for the image itself, right? So take note of that. I'm thinking about doing something along the lines of take what I have here, move it over a wee bit. Perhaps there's we could even do something similar in this regard where we move it to, let's just see what happens. So this is padding from this side here, right? A good way to give yourself a little bit more control, you can actually undo all of that. Good way to give yourself a little bit more control is actually create a separate sort of object, right? So we actually delete this. I'm glad that I'm actually just giving you some options here, right? This is good. You can always remove a component. Just going to these three little dots here, remove component. All right, we're back to where we started, right? These have shifted mainly due to the fact that I touched a couple things with regard to the padding and such. We can, for now, ignore that. These will be fixed anyhow, right? So it's okay. So right here we actually have an image that's already set up for us in the sort of main menu, which is kind of nice. Do I want that there? Would be good actually, just because I don't want to touch the this here, which is the text and all that. However, it's not completely necessary. I can always make another sort of game object and place it within the content section. So if I go to game object, go to UI, go to image, now I have an image backdrop. Nice. Put that in the content page or section, and look at that little image. It doesn't even know what to do. I do want it to be behind the image sort of control, so I'm going to be cognizant of that. As far as sprites go, I'll go back into my sprites. I already have one here, so I'll just go back to the image, get my little tree cat lady sprite, plop that in, set native size. Perhaps I want to also press W on the keyboard to move this, and I'll just keep it somewhere around there. I do like a little bit of overlap just to kind of make sure things look lovely. There we are. So you could kind of look at it like this. This is your all-encompassing sort of image size of your interface. This is the the sort of inner dimensions of the interface. Also contains the image, the text. The header sits outside of that, just so that can be moved around on its own as well. Back to this image though, just so it doesn't look like total garbage, I am going to actually bring it down, and I'm using the middle mouse key to navigate, just an FYI. Bring it down a hair. Right. Press W again on the keyboard and bring that up. You can always grab that middle portion, remember. It's R again. W again. R was for scaling, right? E for rotation. And I'm just matching up the blue here with the blue down here, and that's pretty good. I'm not gonna get too finicky there. Now, what I was going to mention before is that I think I'm just gonna reorganize how this is playing out, right? So let's say I have some wording here that I really enjoy. In this case, I have the you can actually ignore this sort of tile palette. I'm gonna just drop it in here because it's a little distracting. Okay. I have the text here up top, and I have the text over here to the left. What if I just made this the title, but to the left? Not only that, but what if I simply drag this over, line it up appropriately. Maybe I bring that over, and there we are. Good. And then I just start with the bullet points here. So I have the text that I can then, you can always adjust certain features here as well. So if you wanted to adjust the scale of the entire box, you can do so, or adjust the scale of the writing itself. Totally doable. In this case, I am going to just select the text portion, sort of bring it just like so. I want it to line up with the title. Just design best practices, right? Keep things aligned. Don't get too loose with the geometric nature of your design. Let things line up with each other. Now what that did is it allowed me to adjust just the space where the text is populating, right? It kept the overall sort of shape of the interface for the text, which is good. That's what I want. We're going to just undo that. It's just illustrating. If you look at these numbers should change based on where I have this, right? This little yellow box just for the text. It's very, very useful. Now, alternatively, you could just have this, from a design perspective, again, you could actually just have this centered, right? That's totally acceptable. Do what fits for your interface. Don't get caught up in what I'm doing too much. Okay. Now, I do enjoy what is said in this little text area, but I think that we could do with a different font. The style that I'm going for is a little bit out of place, or this one in particular is a little bit out of place. So let's find a new style, and we may even want to import some if we don't find one we like. Cool. Now, a great place to find different fonts. Obviously, there's a whole bunch in here, but you can even try to see what fits with what we have. Don't mind that. No. That one's good for like basic game stuff. Z cool, what is that? That actually works. If you do want to import your own fonts, this is a possibility. I'm actually going to go about showing you how to do that. One way that I normally do it is I'll actually go and find the font that I want. In this way, I'll go to a browser, maybe go to defont.com, and I'll just find a font that is free to use, something like Sweet Kitty, right? That's something that you could use, or Groovy. Groovy's always good. The Blue Ocean. Margin, Letter Magic, Genty, all sorts of strange things. Just make sure it's free for personal use. You know, this is an educational thing, so personal use counts. Perhaps I'll just pick, I don't know, Omegle, whatever this is. We'll download that. I'm going to actually go to my downloads folder. I'm going to cut. I'll go to lecture videos. Actually, I want to go to desktop. 119 stuff. And I'll just place it near the demo that I'm on right now. So I'll just press paste. And I'll extract all. Get it prepped properly for what I'm trying to do. And there we go. Always best practice to just install it right on the computer right away. And then we'll work on making SDF type fonts for our game. So here, install for all users. Yes. This one installed for all users. Yeah. No. Alright, very good. Now that we're good with that, I'm going to go back to my layer of items here. We'll go to the environment section again, and in here in this sprites folder, this is exactly where we just were. I'm actually going to create a new folder, and we'll just call it font. Call it font new, fonts. Best practice would be fonts, right? Bringing in some fonts. How do we do it? Well, it's not as hard as you think. We can actually just drag, I'm just getting this from my recent files, drag this in and plop it down. Now, is it ready yet? Not quite. Now what we need to do is select it, make sure that it is an SDF compatible item. No references. This is fine. This is fine. I have a feeling it may have actually done so on its own, but let's just double check that. So if I go in here and go to edit, we'll actually just go in here and check it out. Probably not, right? Very unlikely that it would just pop up. And yep, so it did not. Okay, good. That's what I expected. For the creation of text, we want to just go and find where that belongs, right? And then we're going to transition into an SDF format for that font so that we can actually use it in Unity without any problems. So we'll go to Window. Once we're in Window, we'll go down to Text Mesh Pro. Couple things to note: there are essential resources that can be imported. I believe they already are, so let's avoid that. Instead, let's go to Font Asset Creator. Now, the panel that just popped up, this Font Asset Creator panel window, is your means toward creating new fonts. Different ways to do things. So for the source font, this is the font that I've placed into the project, Omegle. Right, so I'll actually bring Omegle, the font, up and just toss it right in. Now, auto sizing is good. Sometimes you want to ensure that it is perhaps maybe a little smaller to optimize certain aspects, or perhaps the overall resolution doesn't go beyond like 512 or something, right? Just be careful with that. Getting kerning pairs is good. Kerning is when you're kind of giving space between the letters, right? So that's something that you may consider. I'm not, just for now, I'm not going to actually plop that in. I'm just going to keep it as is. Feel free to do the same. You don't have to get too wild with that. But we've tossed that in. The padding is 5. That's fine. The packing method, you can go as wild as you want with that, fast or optimum. I'm fine with fast, being that nothing is needs to be too specialized here. So I'll go ahead and generate font atlas, and you'll get this wild looking thing. You can choose to simply just save it, and it'll save into the font new folder as Omegle SDF, or you can do a save as and sort of name it what you wish, right? I'll exit out of my Font Asset Creator panel and I'll go back to text. And it's at this point where I'm just going to test out if what we created is good to go. And it is. There's Omegle. Looking nice, looking good. Nice, very good. And feel free to type whatever you wish, right? So the controls are for salami. something like that, right? Something ridiculous. Now back to the header, same deal, except this time I'm going to use what I was using before just because I really like that. I think they pair kind of well, not very well, but kind of. Don't get carried away with that. I will bold that though, just so it has a little bit more presence, and I'll size it up accordingly. So I'm actually going to size that up. It is adjustable, right? So that's nice. I think I'm going to adjust it to 21 for the min, and I'll do 74 for the max. And we'll go from there. That's good for that. Overflow enabled, which is fine. Good. Can always scale it up in this way too with these guys. That's fine. If you don't want to do auto size, you can actually uncheck that and do something like 80, 89, right? Or 95, 98. Let's actually line it right up so we can do 100. Whoa, that went crazy. 100, there we are. Luckily I have my transform on here, so I'm just going to move that over. Note that I'm lining things up, right? So here I am going to actually bring that down a bit, meaning this start section, I'll just put it down there. So how do I do that? Well, I can select the text and simply just middle mouse button again and navigate with the hand, push that in, and there you are. We have a little bit of something going on there. Good to have things adjustable though, be aware of that. Like if I wanted to go back to the header, I could indeed do a sort of auto size, right? And there's maybe like 30 and 100 or something like that, right? 30 and 100. And that'll bring it up in between. I'm okay with it being auto size, and I don't mind that it's not stretching all the way out. We'll keep it like that. That's fine. Don't be afraid to move stuff. In this case, I'll actually bring this up too. I don't need all that, so. But I only want to move that, so just be careful how we do it. Perhaps something more like that, right? Bring that in, bring that over, and we're good. And then we'll go ahead and shift to the salami tile. Dun, 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 dun. Lovely. Good, and this obviously you can bring that down if you want. Good to have equidistance in the margins, right? Be aware of that. It's a little something, something. Cool. We are a-okay, in my opinion. I'm going to keep that centered. I think that's definitely paramount. Good. Wouldn't mind bringing that down even more now. And just adjust accordingly, right? It's all about good design, having fun, and ultimately just not pressuring yourself to do too much. Sometimes less is more. It's a classic saying. Everybody knows it. And yes, it is true. Say less. Say less. I have made the mistake of saying too much too many times in my life, and it's never good. Say less. Sometimes do less. Most of the time you will not have a chance to do less. That's how you live. The story of life. Anyways, we have imported a font. We have created some kind of background. I want to do more though. This isn't enough. It's not enough. What am I gonna do? So let's jump into that. One thing we're gonna do here is grab another little background image just to spice things up a little bit. And that background image is this little guy, which we already have in here. So we'll go to our environment, go to sprites. We do need to adjust some settings though. I'm okay with clamp, I'm not too worried about it. It's okay if you leave it as bilinear, it's okay if you leave it as clamp. Good. Do the RGB 832 bits to keep it fancy pantsy. Not going to go beyond 2048, but we'll keep it at that regardless. Press apply. And I think it is time to make another little image component, but also asset, right? It's an object. Let's make an object. So you go down to UI, and what did I just do there? I right-clicked the content. UI, image, another image, and this will be backdrop 2. So backdrop 2. Now, in order to change the name of things, if you're not familiar, you just simply click it once and wait, and it'll populate. Once, wait, and populate. It's kind of like when you spray perfume, right? You spray, you delay, and then you walk away. Right through the mist of the perfume, of course. Because you don't want too much, you just want enough. Anyways, the stories of life continues. Image backdrop 2, that is where we're at here. Very good. Bring that points sprite up, at least that's what my sprite's called. Drag it in. You can always tint your sprite. We've gone over color tinting before in our super duper basics video last week. Good. Now, again, hold down Alt, click. Make sure that this is good. You can widen it out. You can center it. I'll probably just dock it right there, or maybe right there. That way when it populates, it goes zoop all the way up, and I'm a happy camper. You could even adjust it accordingly on your own. However, not worried about it. Preserve aspect. Probably a good thing. Note how it is shrinking in and out right now. I'll actually zoom in on it a little bit. Watch this. Beep, beep, boop. Right? Just set the native size. Ooh, that's a lot. Oi. Right? Too much. It's okay though. It's not a big deal. Relax. Put this thing in there. Just go up, up, up to the blue point. We're actually going to now just get a little sized if you want here with the blue, lining up the blue-gray with the image, right? Likewise up there eventually. You can actually just get the dimensions of that if you wish and then put them in, up to you. I'm just going to eyeball a couple times more here. I'm not too concerned. There we are. Maybe I'll just center it with the salami. This is a horrible design, but it does the job in regards to showing you what you need to do. And it's a little fun. Now let's say I can't read the writing because there's just too much going on, right? See this? The other thing being that, you know, I'm on top of a different sort of that text that I had before. It's not in the appropriate sort of layer, sorting layer. So we're gonna have to change that so that it actually is in front and not in the back. Let's do that. In order to do that, you can do one of two things. This probably isn't going to do it for us. That's something else. We want to go and see where it's rendering from. So it's rendering from default. Looks like it's rendering from UI, so that's good. Where is this image rendering from? It's another thing to note. Keep that the way it is. Good. Simple's good. That's fine. Looks like we don't have access to this. In order to do that, we'd actually just have to kind of drag in a sort of UI material for that. It's okay though. We shall adjust accordingly. Now, the other option is to just kind of try to put things above, right? So one of two things here, and it's actually a good thing that we're running into this so you can see how to fix this issue. This I want to, I'm gonna have to open up this prefab in order to actually edit this, because let's just open that up. Okay. Now where are the images? Images are not in the prefab, and that's fine. So we can actually unpack this. So we'll go to content and prefab. Let's see. I have to go through it this way. Prefab. Unpack. Just unpack. There you go. Totally fine. Not the end of the world to unpack. Sometimes we have to do it. Okay. That's and that. That'll help you out with the sort of hierarchy of where things are on the UI canvas. Other way to do it is to adjust some sorting layers, right? But I'm not going to mess around with that right now. As such, be aware that you do have to ensure that your image is dark enough for your text to be read. Or perhaps the text has to be dark enough on top of something light for the text to be read, right? So how do we change the color of the image? In this instance, I will simply go to the color after selecting the object I want, which is this sprite in the interface. Select the color bar. I can do one of two things. I can actually just fade it down. Preferably I would like to just make it a little darker. I think that just fits what we're doing a bit more, a bit better. Good, that works. Now I'm gonna go ahead and save. And let's just pretend that this will suffice, right? And I would say it does. I don't think you have to go all out here in regards to trying to make everything perfect, especially if you're going to change it later, right? I do want you to consider that though. Don't just do a one and done for your interface. When you get into Unity, move things around, and that's why I have you doing things in layers so that you can move things around, right? This is one of the most important takeaways from all of this. Now, what about these buttons here? We have all these buttons, but perhaps you don't know how to use them, right? And that's fine. It's not a big deal. We'll actually just go ahead and select one of these little buttons here. Interesting that it says top left. I do want to adjust that. If I press Alt, and I just do something more like that, perhaps. It's like it's locked up. Why is it locked? Ah, it's locked because... Gotcha. Let's see what happens if I just simply change the color. Okay, we're good. Right. Very good. Alright, so that's fine. Looks like I just had some weird anomaly there. All of these buttons are linked to a sort of event system, right? The event system is going to navigate through these buttons and tell things to do things, etc. Don't worry too much about that at the moment. We'll get a little bit deeper into that as we go. Right now, just focus on implementation and how you can improve the way things look in this way. I shall simply place a sort of sprite of sorts right in there. You can obviously choose what you have created. I'm just going to choose from what I have right here. I don't think there's any sort of purpose behind making anything new at the moment. This is going to represent exactly what I want you to do perfectly fine. So I will drag this mountain image into the sprite. Obviously it has populated in a sort of very long fashion. Don't really want that, right? Not something I want. So what do we have to do about that? Well, the one thing we have to do is simply go to button image instead of image, right? It's so you could take the image off, and if the image has the appropriate sort of dimension, it should be fine, it'll populate fine, etc., right? But if we don't want to mess around with that too much, you can always just drag that into the appropriate slot. Looks like it's not populating here. Let me just give that another go. Going into the wrong thing here. So if we do something like this. Alright. Now I'm going to show you why the mountains didn't work and why the fence did work. I just picked the wrong sprite there and the wrong slot. Forgive me for that. So if you look at the dimensions of the mountains, they're quite long. There's a giant length going on there, right? Be wary of that when you are replacing your sprites. You may have to do some pre-import production to assist you in getting the right size. So if we go to the fence, note that it is only 200 by 91. If I select the main button, what do I see for a sort of let's see if we can actually get the button portion. There we go. What do I see for size? I see that it has been sort of sized down to a half, oh no, it's full scale, but it has been placed in the appropriate slot due to, here we are, due to this here. So we have 600 at max and 60 at max height. So 600-ish for width, 60 at max height. And that's why it's a little bit stretched, this fence. Now when we plop this in there, it just said, oh geez, do you want this to be bigger? Alright. And then it just went wild, made a gigantic mountain as a button. We don't really want that, right? Not something we want. So obviously, accordingly, you can actually select your fonts that you want for this. We can actually center them as well, right? Now make sure that you can see them. It's part of the issue here is that seeing is not very easy. So brighten it up, or give it some kind of dimension in regards to richness of color, just so that we can actually see what we need to read and then navigate appropriately. Many other features to buttons, those of which I can go over in infinitum, really. If you wanted to, let's say for the text and the button here, you want the button to change color when you're hovering over it. Well, then go to highlighted color and just go beep, right? That's how it'll be. And we're just visualizing it now, right? So maybe it's, this kind of weird bluish green as a normal color, right? So let's try it out. I'm going to actually turn this off because that's how our little game likes it here. I'll select an enemy, I'll press F, zoom in, I'll press play, and let's just see what's going on here. You can see some weird stuff I did earlier. If I press escape, there's my menu. And note that it is indeed highlighting. And it'll take me to the said main menu, if you will. There's my settings, my controls, my credits, all of which can be edited in the same fashion as we just did. I do hope this was helpful. If you need anything else in regards to help, feedback, what have you, maybe you have problems getting these darn buttons in, or just making things work properly, just give me a holler. Give the TA a holler, and we'll get right to it for you. All right. With that, enjoy your week, and the next step: tile maps, tile mapping, creating the level. Oh, so nice. All right, enjoy, and bye bye.